It's called like The Little Lamp, and it's the story revolves around a shepherd. The shepherd is a central character in Romanian mythology. Is a person who is very connected with nature, because he lives a very simple life, and he lives in harmony with nature and with animals, and he can even communicate with them in ways that other people cannot do. And the story of the Yule lamp um, goes like following. There is this young shepherd who is and the enchanted Yule lamp, who tells him that he is going to die very soon. He is going to be killed by two of his mates, and so he's faced with this prospect of his death, and he decides. I mean, his last wishes are to be buried by in his favorite place, in the middle of the nature, and close to his beloved sheep and beloved dogs. And the way he sees this his passing is he sees it as an integration into the cycle of nature. um, I mean, not in a necessarily in a negative way. He's done becoming part of something bigger. He sees it like a cosmic wedding, and yeah, I found that to be very beautiful, and without aiming to illustrate, this ballad in my pictures. Certainly, it inspired many of the images.
Wow. So he finds out that his friends are going to kill him, and he just accepts it.
He just accepts it.
He doesn't try to stop it. He doesn't. He goes, I guess it's my time.
Yes, it's something like that.
That is straight. Really?
Yeah, he has this attitude of acceptance.
Wow. Welcome to the show, Roxana.
Thanks for having me, Patrick.
So excited to have you on. I've actually been following you on Instagram. And so, like, I've been seeing a lot of your work there. So I was so glad when we finally, when Steve finally said, "Hey, let's talk to her," and I was like, "Yes." I've been following your work. I've been seeing some of the shows that you've been working on and putting up, and I am beyond excited to have you on the show today. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exciting for me too.
Yeah. Well, before we jump into any of the work, go ahead and take a moment and introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, you start with with the hardest question, right?
Who am I?
Who am I exactly? It takes a lifetime to figure out. Yeah, let's start with the obvious. My name is Roxana Savin. I am an artist. I am a mother. I am an advocate for gender equality, and a person who moved around quite a lot from one country to another. So a migrant in this sense. I moved from Romania about 20 years ago. I left the country as a law school graduate, and lived and worked in different places ever since. And currently I'm based in Geneva, in Switzerland, together with my family. That's the short.
Well, I'm curious because I know you have you studied law and you got a law degree, and that's it's different than doing what you are doing right now, which is being kind of a full-time artist these days. And so I'm curious about you when you were younger. Were you an artistic person, or did that come later?
It definitely came later for me. Yeah. So I never dreamed, I never planned to be an artist. It's something that art has found me,
Interesting.
more than the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it some people it's just like they've had it since they were a kid. Like for me when I was younger, I was always kind of an artist. I was always drawing and stuff like that. And so I saw hints of it, throughout my life, even though I kind of chose different directions and different paths. But eventually it just slapped me in the forehead and when I was older and it was like, no, it's time. And I'm like, okay. So, you so as a young person, then you kind of made your way into being a law student. And like, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, I'm curious. Um, how did you? That's basically my question. Talk to me a little bit about that evolution.
It's quite an unusual journey, right? From law to something to art, right? Yeah, so I'm originally from Romania. I will explain a little bit about the context. So I think, yeah, from the background, uh, my journey is going to be more obvious. Um, I'm from this city in the north of Romania called Iași. It's a city at the border with the Republic of Moldova and not far away from Ukraine. For those who are not familiar with Romania, it's a country in Eastern Europe. um, and with a long history of communism up until 1989, when the revolution happened and Ceausescu's regime was overthrown. And afterwards, there was a period of transition, a period of turmoil, and Romania eventually joined the EU in 2007, I think. And it underwent this period of transformation where the country transitioned from this autocratic communist regime to a democracy. And of course, there were lots of reforms in the economy and yeah. I was a child during the communist times, so part of my childhood that happened during the communist regime. Um, and then I came to witness the revolution, of course, not first directly, um, and all the transitions that happened afterwards. Of course, you can say that I was too small to understand lots of things that happened during the communist times, but it's because it's an ongoing process. I think me, like many people of my generation, we are still trying to figure out to make sense of all the things that happened during the time. But I think that definitely influenced my journey and the choices I made. Because my professional life is it's very much intertwined with my personal life. Yeah, so my I grew up with my until I was 7 years old. I grew up with my grandparents in the countryside. You can say that I had two childhoods. One in the countryside with my grandparents, and another one with my parents. After I turned 7, I moved in with my parents and I lived to the city. Yeah, that's sounds quite unusual, but it was not that. Yeah, it was not that uncommon during the time that parents would live with their kids to in the care of the grandparents because it's easier logistically to manage with work. Yeah, so that happened in my case. When I was very little, when I was a baby, my parents decided to give me away to my grandparents and to be taken care of them and to live with them until I was 7 years old. So yeah, it's for sure it was a difficult decision for them as well. Um, but that was it has to be in that context, where um, you're supposed to continue to work, and the kids, of course, there were crashes and kindergartens. There were quite a few of them, and the regime was taking pride in providing all these places to raise the young generation, but in reality, the quality of childcare was very poor in these places. So they were overcrowded and the children were not well treated. So for many parents, um, having the kids raised by the grandparents was much better solution. Yeah. So that was my case, and I I lived in this village for 7 years in the south of Romania. It was a village by the banks of the Danube River. Yeah, yeah, quite a small place. And yeah, my childhood was marked by lots of freedom. You mentioned I was by myself most of the time. I spent a lot of time by myself because my grandparents were out working, and yeah, during the time um, there was this process of collectivization, where the communists would persuade, maybe it's not the right term, coerce the peasants to give away their land and animals, and to form these collective units because they considered that this was the way to do agriculture. So yeah, so basically they confiscated the land from the peasants. And my grandparents worked at the collective farm, for morning to late. So I was yeah, I was by myself, and I think I learned to to keep myself company. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's interesting is when I was reading your bio, you had put in a definition for the latchkey kids or the latchkey generation, or I think that's what you put it
Yeah.
in there. But you know that even though you're kind of talking about Romania, like that's how I grew up. It was like we were just on our own, just kind of you were put outside and unsupervised, and you just disappeared, and when the sun came down you came home, kind of thing. And that's how I grew up. I grew up also in the 80s too, so yeah, 80s and then 90s, but that was just a different kind of way of being. I've never been going to school with some, I've been going back to school, and I've been meeting a lot of the younger generation, and they have no concept of this. It almost seems bad to some people. Oh, what, you leave your kids unsupervised? And I'm like, yeah, it's good for them. I don't know. I'm just, but I think that's interesting. How do you think that shaped, like, you? Did you form kind of an independence that kind of evolved? Talk to me about how that influenced you.
Yeah, I think definitely it shaped me, because I had now being a parent, as you mentioned, I'm also thinking about different ways of how different styles of parenthood impact the kids, and
Yeah.
the best way, going forward. Um, yeah, but definitely being so free, I think um, it helped me to be comfortable in my own company, and when I was alone for long stretches of time, and also being, yeah, I was quite autonomous, and although I think it's helpful to have probably more guidance. It's good to have a parental figure or someone who would have authority, and guidance, to give more guidance. But the times were, my childhood was it was very typical of it was a typical childhood, I guess, in many ways for kids of my generation. So it was nothing special. And then, after I moved in with my parents when I was 7 years old. When I was of school age, I moved to my hometown in Iași, in the north of Romania. And then again, it was we lived in a typical blocks of flats, like a 10-story blocks of flats, and everyone had more or less the same standard of living. Our apartments would even look the same, if you walked into someone else's living room, they would have very similar furniture to yours, those were the times. And but for me it was also quite a big transition from being having this carefree and somehow innocent childhood in the countryside to something more regimented, more structure. Everything revolved around schooling and the school program, so it was not much beyond that. Because during that time the kids were taught from a young age to they were being educated in the spirit of the Communist Party. I mean, somehow I think they were considered to be the property of the state rather than rather than belonging to the parents, right? Because indoctrination started from a young age, and it was important that you go to school, and then you are being educated in the spirit of the Communist Party, and you are being part of a youth organization, and you are going to take a part in marches, and you are going to be a pioneer, I had this, so where you swear that you are going to that duty to the your country and to the party, and you are going to then you wear uniform, which was typical, with a tie in the colors of the Romanian flag. There was strange times.
Well, yeah, it's
So you had to be in that, to fit in that mold, definitely. So you were there, you had to move with the crowd. It was
has that stuck with you? Was it hard to shake off? I'm just curious.
I think it was very hard for me to transition from. It was quite when I was 7, moving from the countryside, moving to the city, and diving into this very regimented schooling system. You can call it mass schooling.
So why did you choose to be a lawyer? What was that? What drew you to that?
It's hard to say, whether it was my or perhaps my parents' suggestion, at the time. Because my parents, they themselves, they left their villages. They left from the countryside. They moved to the city. So they were the first from their generation, from the family, to live in the city. And at that time there was this process of urbanization and industrialization the country was going through, where the regime was trying to encourage people to more people to move to the cities and to work in the factories. So they were part of that generation who moved out from the villages. They moved to the city, and I was the first in my family to go to university, and this is something that parents really, really wanted to happen. They really encouraged me and my sister to get a good education, because themselves, I mean, they did the best they could in the circumstances they had, but perhaps they didn't have many opportunities at that time, and they thought we had a great opportunity being living in this city where we had a university, and we could go to university and we can have a better future for ourselves.
Yeah. It's interesting. So you kind of just chose it. It seemed like a good path. You took an opportunity to go to a instead of being in an Eastern country to come to the West. And so talk to me about that transition, and why did you stop being a lawyer? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, it's a long story. Time. Yeah. Um, so going to law school was something that made my parents very proud, and of course it gave me as well a sense of achievement, right? Because there was this promise for having a better life, and but then it was a difficult time in Romania, transitioning to democracy and to reforming all the reforms the country underwent at that time. There was a period of turmoil, and many people chose to emigrate. They chose to leave the country because, in search for better opportunities. Because it was so, there were perhaps not so many opportunities in Romania at the time, and it was also this dream of, moving to Western Europe. It's something that it was the forbidden dream during the communist regime, right? So many people risked their lives to live abroad, and then we had this freedom after the revolution. So we had a chance to go and live abroad, and so for me it was when the opportunity arose. I was quite a fresh graduate. I was working in the field as a legal advisor, and then we had this opportunity to move abroad and Western Europe together with my husband. And we discussed a little bit, and we decided to take it. And
That's awesome.
yeah, it was, we didn't plan to stay for very long, so we thought it's going to be just a few years, more like to see how it's like to see how it's life abroad, how it's like to work abroad, and then of course we are going to come back. And because it was my husband's job which initially initiated this move, we discussed, and one of the things that came out, in the discussion was me saying that where there is no way I'm going to be a housewife if if we are going to move abroad, because I felt like I invested in my education and in my career, and I didn't want to give up everything, to give up my professional life. And of course I felt like I was very young and I was just at the beginning of my journey, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we decided to try and to make it work for both of us professionally. Yeah, which was our attempt, for many years.
I think it's an interesting to kind of hear your upbringing and why you chose to be a lawyer. And now I'm kind of curious how you deviated from the path and how art found you. You said it early. How did that happen? How did you fall into photography? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I so we lived in different countries for work, and we were trying to manage this dual career thing, um, and we thought we were doing quite well, and I mean, it's easier when you don't have children, definitely. Yeah, but then after I became a mother, and we decided to start a family, so I became a mother, and I decided I took some time off to take care of, to spend time with my children. And after, and of course, when you are in this situation, given my personal history, with my parents not having the opportunity to spend time with me when I was little, I I thought of myself as being very, very privileged, and fortunate to be with my kids when they were small. And certainly, I felt like that for um, a number of years, and then they grew older, and they started to go to kindergarten, and then they were about to start school, and all of a sudden I had more time, for myself, and I had more time and to think about my future, and it was a bit. And at that time we lived in Russia, so we lived first in we were in Ukraine when my kids were born, so they were both in Ukraine, and then we moved to Russia when they were very, very small, and we lived in this gated expatriate community with other people from all over the world, and um, it was a very peculiar place, yeah, in many respects. Um, I was in this situation, and I was a stay-at-home mother in a foreign country, um, in a quite isolated place, because it was about 1 hour and a half drive from the capital. Yeah, uh, and yeah, I was. I think during the time, I had these questions about meaning and purpose in my life, and yeah, I became aware of being a stay-at-home mother. I became aware of the lack of value and acknowledgement that of the society and the work of the care and the care and domestic work that mothers do, and because it was such a huge difference from being like a professional woman working for a law firm, and your job is such a large part of your identity, right? So
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
someone for the first time, or when you have a casual conversation, you always ask the other person, what do they do for a living, right? And yeah, it became obvious to me, when I said previous that I was a legal advisor. It was the start of a conversation. But when I said that I was a stay-at-home mother, it was the end of a conversation. And yeah, it was quite yeah, made me think about this situation where women perform traditional gender roles, where there is this very traditional separations of roles in the marriage or relationship, where one is a breadwinner and the other one is a full-time carer. And I think it's a bit problematic, because I was looking at around in the community where I lived, and then it struck me because most of the women living there were in the same situation with me. They left they left their home countries, they left their jobs, their careers behind, and to support their partners' careers and to take care of the family. And I think I met during that time only about 2 men who are in this situation, like stay-at-home fathers, and the large majority were women. And when you are in this situation, you're also you're basically dependent on the also your status on the visa. Your visa is dependent. You're not allowed to work. Yeah, I mean that was the situation in Russia. You're not allowed to work, so you are totally dependent on your partner. So this is a vulnerable position you find yourself in, and makes you think about how society often idealizes and romanticizes the work of mothers, saying that this is the most important job in the world, but
Yeah,
in
it's a strange dynamic. It's strange. It's a strange dynamic. Why?
it's
Y-
not paid, and
It's so true though.
it's not paid. We don't value it, it's not acknowledged, it's not valued. It's like it's not producing any economical value somehow, which is
Economic value. Yeah, it
with
has a different value.
it's
Yeah.
it's the backbone of the economy, on the other hand, because if the mothers would stop caring for their kids and they would stop doing all the household chores, um, the man wouldn't be able to be engaged in paid work,
Yeah.
yeah. So
It's an interesting. We're in this kind of. I think as a society, we're in this weird, strange kind of pivot place between it all. I know in America where I'm from, like both, it's uncommon for 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 you actually it's so expensive that everyone has to work. As soon as the kids get old enough, yeah, you get to work. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But
they work
yeah,
with one salary, and where do the kids go? And
yeah, and
well, we spend yeah, you spend one salary to pay a nanny, right, to take care of the kids.
and that's exactly what ended up happening, right? Is that you have the couple, both of them going to work, and in that situation, that part of it's paying for a very expensive childcare, and at that, it's not. You don't know if it's 100% because you have to put your full self into your work, and so it's interesting. It's interesting to kind of think about our time like that now, and then now like you're kind of in that, and you said it's kind of a privilege, and so you have it seems like you have this like what is it, like yin and yang or positive and negative aspect to it that you're kind of playing with, it's like you get that opportunity that your parents didn't have, but at the exact same time it's like socially like frowned, it's like it's strange, don't you think? Are you always kind
Yeah,
of thinking about this? Yeah, yeah,
that I reflected on. I mean, thinking about my childhood and the communist model, and now the capitalist model, and just made me think and reflect a little bit about how this works, and as I said, during the communist times, you can arguably women were equal to men, and there were times, I mean, in Romania, women were, I mean, they call it the gender equality. They was inscribed in the communist constitution even, and women are encouraged to work alongside with men in factories and to. But on the other hand, it was very important that they have children, they are mothers, because that constituted the workforce. So the maternity leave was not very long. There were only a few months where you were allowed to stay at home, and then it was provide. I mean, the communists were taking pride in providing these creches and kindergartens and nurseries and mass schoolings and free textbooks, things like this for the children to be able to. But actually, the quality of the childcare in these places, these nurseries and creches, were very poor. Yeah. So, and the purpose was not for the child to get an education or to be well taken care of. Was just for the woman to be able to work. If you think about the work and you separate, if you separate work, in society from reproduction, so you think that reproduction is separate and family and work is on other side, and they're totally distinct, and we should not care about how the people manage with their children, who is raising them, who is going to take them to the doctor, things like this. So this distinction, I think, is a bit tricky. If you expect someone to deal with that and not have any support for that, I think for mothers, it's very important that you have options. That if you want to stay at home and to be with your kids and to become a stay-at-home mother, you should be able to have this choice and not be judged for that, and also, if you want to continue your professional life, I think you should be supported, and it's very important for gender equality. Right? Because if women, most of the women I know, they would like to go back to work, or at least they would like to continue to work in a form or another, maybe with flexible hours or with a reduced schedule in the beginning when the kids are small. And I think that would be great to offer them this possibility for them so they continue their professional lives, because otherwise, motherhood can mark this moment in a woman's life and in society where there is a huge loss of equality between men and women. They are going to, and many women never return to work after having kids. So what do you think about that? And it's not by their choice, because you find yourself in this situation. I mean, there are a few years down the line, and maybe too many years, and it's hard to go back and to we have to brush, maybe to re-educate yourself, to brush up your CV, and you've been out of the labor market for so long. It's not easy. I think it's good to provide this continuity, and in this way women would have options, and they can be supported as mothers as well, and in their professional lives, and they also would be better represented in society. I mean, it's good to see more women in political life, and to have more women as the role models.
So how did you find your way photographing? Like, how did you?
I haven't answered your question at all.
Yeah. How
um,
did you develop that?
I started so when I was in that was the introduction. When I was in this expatriate community in Moscow as a stay-at-home mother, there was this period in my life of when I was searching, for purpose, and I was struggling with these feelings of isolation, of also, thinking about these things like self-worth and how, feeling kind of invisible a little bit in society, because that's that's how you feel, when you are doing the domestic work and the care work and the door closes, and where everyone is out of the door, the kids go to school, your partner goes to work, and yeah, your whole day revolves around domestic duties. And it was I got engaged with photography almost by accident. One of my friends just asked me if I would like to join a beginner photography course. So they had a group of people who wanted to have a photography course, and they needed one more person to complete the group, and to start. And she proposed me, and why I said, why not? Why not? I could start. I could join the course, because I couldn't take any decent pictures. I could just use this course to take nice pictures of my kids and my family. And I didn't have any high expectations. I didn't think that it's going to become something big in my life. But then it happened. So I finished that basic, this beginner's course, where they just taught us how to operate a DSLR, and we learned things like the depth of field for the first time. And I enjoyed it, and I wanted to go, to the next. So what's next now? Yep. And
So you got invited to a class. You caught the bug. How did you? Because you don't fake beginner photos. You are quite good at composing images and so on. So how did you develop?
yeah, I felt like I noticed that it felt somehow natural for me, to do that.
Yeah.
And it felt right. And I thought, wow, that's something that I would like to pursue. And another friend of mine told me about this photography school in Moscow. And that apparently is very nice, and we can, do something more serious there. And I did some research, and I Googled them. I was online, and I looked them up. It was called the Fine Arts School of Photography. And I think now they changed the name to Palais Rania. And I looked them up, and there was a gallery of images by the students, and wow, it was the moment where it really opened my eyes. And this it was my first encounter with photography, other than when other than reproduction of reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the pictures were very evocative. They were blurry, moody pictures. And I thought, wow, I want to do that. Dream to be able to do that. Yeah. So I knocked their door. Basically, I went there to the city center, said, and I asked them if they could accept me as a student. So, and I had some courses with them over about 2 years. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you developed. So you got the bug. You developed it a little bit more, and so then you started your own personal kind of projects. You started to do your own
Yeah.
kind of thing. So what were the things? I know some of the subject matter that you were talking about in your upbringing, some of the things that you were talking about in your upbringing, kind of highlight some of the things that you photographed. But talk to me about how you evolved in your projects, what you found yourself photographing, what caught your eye after school.
Yeah. Well, during the school, um, I started with I was experimenting with things like street photography, and then I developed some projects which involve landscape. Yeah. Some of them maybe are on the website, and which are still my best-selling projects, my best-selling work, I have to say. Yeah. Um, yes, I was photographing landscape. Yeah, quite a lot. And I was enjoying that. But it was something that at the back of my mind, that's something like I want to tell my story. I want to be able to make a larger body of work, to tell my personal story, how it's like to be a stay-at-home mother, and these issues around the visibility or invisibility, more exactly, of the work that women do at home. But it seemed quite daunting, to take up such an ambitious project.
Yeah.
And it also was, it involved photographing other people, which I didn't do up to that time, And yeah, being alone with the landscape, it's a much safer situation than photographing subjects.
Mm. So it's
Yeah. So I enrolled to an MA photography in the UK, and I developed this project, which became a book. I'll be late tonight during the MA. Yeah.
Oh wow. So you went all the way in and you started to really like own it and tell your own narrative. That's a really cool story. I'm kind of curious for the next part of it. Like who since you've had a chance to kind of study and go a little deeper, who inspires you? Who's artist that you like? Is there anybody that inspires you out there? Or there's some people that like to say I'm insulated. I don't. But do you have anybody that you like as a photographer out there?
Answer to say that not to upset anyone,
Yeah.
anyone from my past, no, of course I was lucky to have people who inspire me and who played an important role in what I am today as an artist. Yeah. But I like to look at what other people are doing. I'm looking at everything, more or less. Yes.
Anybody come to mind? I'm curious.
But different projects, it also depends on the project. Yeah. So when I'm working on something, I'm drawn to a particular style, and I'm looking at what has been done on that topic, or if it's a certain aesthetic I'm looking for. I'm also taking a look, and I'm curious about what other people are doing. Yeah, I think I like, I don't know, there are on top of my head, there are photographers I like Teresa Zelenkova, for example, and I like Nadav Kander's portraits.
Oh yeah.
Uh, um, but I also now I think for inspiration, when you speak about inspiration, I'm also looking to other things. Like I really admire the practice of people who have this resilience, or very, they have this grit of going very deep into a certain topic and pursuing it, like Laya Abril, for example, who is working on sensitive subjects like abortion and rape, and I think it's quite amazing to be able to do a research for years and to be able to pursue something that you're passionate about, and also talk about subjects which are quite controversial, and for sure they're going to stir a lot of emotions and people and maybe polarized opinions. It's not a comfortable place to be, but we have to be brave, as an artist. So I think I really admire that attitude. Yeah.
So now I'm curious about your work. So I definitely want to jump into what it is that you do. So you wanted to show us maybe 3 projects today,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, let's try.
Okay. So go ahead and share your screen, and we'll go ahead and take a look at what you do. I love it. So I'm really excited about hearing what you have to say about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is definitely one of the images which has been selected many times. When the project was published or it was exhibited, everyone wanted to have this image of the shirts in the cupboard. And I think it's quite representative, of it encapsulates a lot of the work, a lot of the idea of the project, about this, about the gender roles, and how the roles are very strictly divided between men and women, and these shirts become symbols of. They're not only symbols of the work that women do, but it's also they're symbols of power and social status.
Mm, yeah.
But with many of the images in this project, where I photographed people from my community, some of them are friends, other neighbors, from the community, from the expatriate community, and um, all of them stay-at-home mothers. It was very interesting process as well for me, to be able to share this story with other women and to connect to them through making the work.
Yeah. You're very good at portraits. Does that come naturally to you?
Sorry.
That your portraits are very nice. I really like them. So, does that come naturally to you?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think I like working with people. It's something that I discovered at that time making this project. Um, it's something that I enjoy. I enjoy this. I enjoy the encounter when you have someone in front of the lens, and sometimes it's a person you know, but other times it can be a stranger, and there is this exchange of energy. There is this tension a little bit, perhaps, because you know that you have a limited time uh, to produce a good image, and the other person may also not feel 100% comfortable in front of the camera. They might feel a little bit exposed or vulnerable, and I like this exchange, this space where um, you can project also your own ideas in the image, but the other person, of course, they can also project their own personality and identity in the picture. um, it did not happen. I worked on this project for a few years, and it took me a long time until I figure out how to make it,
Mm.
finding the visual language. Yeah, I mean, at least 1 year I can say I took pictures which I never used, probably. So I took lots of pictures. Yeah, and the first year I never used the pictures because it was just a phase which was necessary for me to understand how I may want to make the project. So yeah, that's the thing about things happening naturally. But once and then this aesthetic somehow emerged from my trials and errors. And once I settled on that, I think things happened somehow organically. That this is an image of my children.
This one that stood out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they in school uniforms?
Yeah, they were school uniforms, and yeah, I was interested in this to capture in many of the images this tension between the appearance and what is hidden. The things that we don't necessarily want to share. And the image which you project onto the world is one thing, but of course it can only hint to something which we are not comfortable to necessarily reveal. And I think in many of my images there is a sense of uncanny, of a bit of strangeness.
It seems like everything is like white and cool colors. You're playing with a very clean palette. It's very is talk to me a little bit about that. Was that conscious choice or just kind of where you were?
I think it was. Somehow it emerged itself after working for a while on the project. I took lots of pictures, and then also I came to visit many of the homes of the other people living there as immigrants. And I'm using this term immigrant and expatriate at the same time, but I was recently searching the meaning to see exactly what's the difference. And because the expatriate is also has different connotations, and so it generally refers to a person who lives in a different country than the country of origin, but they don't intend to stand there permanently, unlike the migrants. In my situation, I did not intend to stay there permanently, so that's why perhaps expatriate would be more accurate.
It also has a different connotation,
Exactly.
You don't, it doesn't ring bells like, immigration and migration is such a big topic these days.
Yes.
And so to think about that expat has just a different, I don't know, it just lands differently, I guess.
It's totally, it is different. I mean, of course, in common language, it has different significations. So related to the aesthetic, going to the other expatriates' homes, I noticed that many of the homes were in many of the homes the furniture was quite sparse. How do you say this? When
sparse. Yeah, it's a good word. Yeah.
IKEA type of furniture, because you don't want to invest too much in a place where that you're not going to spend too much time and you are going to move. You don't know where, maybe in 1 year, maybe in 2 years. So it doesn't make sense to invest a lot in furniture. And so there were many things, many homes had this almost austere feeling. Also, not so many personal objects in some of them.
I noticed that. I was like, there's nothing on the walls.
On the walls, yeah.
Yeah, like it's like just all plain white walls everywhere, and I live, in France. There seems like most people cover every inch of their wall with something, There's just so much. There you go. There, we finally see some things. But those are toys.
happening. Yes.
Yeah.
But I,
I just didn't know if it was something. Well, and now that you draw that connection to expatriates, people are going to be there temporarily. It's really interesting. It's you have this really nice eye for. It seems like it's clean and
yeah.
sharp. It's just not too busy. It's right. It you deliver the subject right away. It's really nice. I like it personally.
Well, I thought it would. It's also for me. It was a way to convey this with this aesthetic, this the feelings of cold and loneliness, isolation as
Yeah,
well.
there you go. Yeah,
Uh,
that definitely delivers.
that you might feel where you are in a
Yeah.
this situation when you are in a foreign country where you don't speak the language in many situations, when you are in an isolated place and you are a stay-at-home mother. Yeah, you don't have the opportunity to interact with many people, so it's quite isolating in many ways, and I think this aesthetic works towards conveying that. And yeah, I was quite um I thought, this light um that I used in the project was I wanted to have something to transmit a sense of vulnerability and tenderness, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, while while always also talking about this tension between the apparent and the hidden and the what is on the surface and the image we project for ourselves and the feelings we don't talk about, the maybe repressed feelings or emotions.
Yeah. This one and the jacket hanging very evocative to me. It's not that it was another one that was on a white wall. I really liked. It was hanging on a wooden rack.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So throughout this project, did you meet new people? Did this kind of get you out into the neighborhood, were or were they people you already knew? Were they already in your circle of people that you would interact with, or did you actively go and find people?
There were the both, there were people. First, I started with my friends, because you need good friends when you are patient friends.
Yeah.
But you start to when you just start a project and you want to experiment a little bit to see what works, to see what doesn't work, and yeah, my friends are very nice and very generous, and um, they offer to sit for me. Um, but many of these pictures actually I haven't used because the project evolved, and then as the project evolved, I also yeah, I think it was a chance to meet new people and to talk about what I wanted to do. Um, and it was also challenging because the place actually was very small, so it was just 200 houses in a village. And whenever I told people, like after 1 year or 2 years working on this project, and my friends were amazed because they saw me around with the camera, and they were like, "You're still photographing here, but there is nothing interesting. What are you doing?"
You're like, that's exactly the point.
This is exactly the point. Yes, this is nothing interesting here. I mean, that was the response I've got from my friends.
That's interesting.
Um,
That's
it's quite a challenge to photograph things over and over again
yeah.
in a place which is very familiar and quite small, and at the first glance, uninteresting.
Yeah.
How to um, how to convey that thing?
Yeah, and when you're capturing a feeling, you're trying to express a feeling.
Yes.
And believe it or not, when life becomes repetitive, it almost becomes invisible, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's so funny that like people can drive the same route to work, but they never see like this one building on the road. They've never seen it. Or if it gets built or whatever, it just becomes so repetitive that you lose things. And so I think that's why people think it's uninteresting. And I think it's interesting for you that you kind of slowed down and you just trying to make sense of it, you know?
Yeah.
You are trying to understand it and try to produce images around that. So you have some really great um, landscape shots in here as well. What role do they play in the series for you?
Wow, they're important quite to set up the scene, you know.
Gotcha.
That's one of them.
These, yeah.
Yeah. Um so most of the all the shots are taken in winter. Because I thought just to because it was true that winter was very long and it felt like it was always winter. And I thought it was one of the hardest things for many people living there. Yeah, to
Yeah.
cope with the cold, with the long, with this long nights, long periods of darkness, and
Yeah.
quite gloomy. But there was also something beautiful about this winter landscape as well. And for me, it was for me it was an obsession anyway. This project, it was something that I wanted to make very, very, very strongly. And yeah, it was something that I had to get it out of my system, you know. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I went a little bit of out of my comfort zone to make it. For example, speaking about landscape, um, I was about to finish the project to wrap it up. So most of the pictures I thought they were taken. So I was about to. I had to finish my project also for my MA. So that was my graduation project, and this moment. I mean, actually, this is a bit uneasy moment when you don't know when do you know when a work is finished.
Yeah, of
When you
course.
work a few years. When you start maybe repeating yourself or taking the same kind of images, or yeah, realize that you take new images but you realize they start to look the same and actually they have nothing more to say. But I had this idea. I really wanted to include myself in the project, because I thought it was important for my position. That was my position as both photographer and author, and also participant in this work. The project is autobiographical. I'm speaking about myself, my life as a stay-at-home mother. Um, and I really wanted to take my self-portraits somewhere outside where in a winter landscape where you don't see any construction or buildings or man-made elements, and it was spring already, and it was March, and the snow melted in most of the snow melted, or I couldn't find close to my house, this landscape that I really wanted to try, for my self portrait, to include it in my project. And then I decided to buy a flight, to buy tickets to fly to the north, um, to close to Murmansk, close to the Arctic Ocean. There is a fishing village, which yeah, is quite interesting place. And I learned about it, and I thought, okay, I want to try to take my to have to make my self portrait there. So it's what you do, and It's a bit crazy if you think about it, but yeah. And then I was in this very remote place on a frozen lake in my wearing my pajamas and just a bathrobe and up to my knees in the snow. But the landscape was exactly what I wanted, you know.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, and some of there were very few people around. But some people stopped there passing by and stopped their cars and asked me if everything is okay, which is a very legitimate question in this
It's true. It's true.
in that.
You're right.
Yeah, but the thing is, when I am in that situation, you know, I didn't think about it unless, yeah, because I had this idea, and my idea was to make this self-portrait with this backdrop, and I didn't think until I saw the other people's reaction that it might look a bit odd from the outside, you know, like I.
Well, no one else in your series did that either. So it's go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't use the. I didn't include this shot in the final project. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was worth the adventure though.
it was okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't regret trying. It's also part of the process, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I had to make it. I had to try, and then I decided that it doesn't work, and I didn't use it, and that's okay. You have to let go, right? I mean, I don't think about, oh yes, what I went there, and yeah, I was freezing. It was cold. No.
Well,
Yeah.
that nighttime shot that you have out there on that it looks like a frozen lake.
Yeah.
That shot is just absolutely gorgeous. Do you get the aurora lights? Is it called the aurora lights?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you get those there? Is that what you're seeing on the background?
In this particular shot, no, no.
No? Oh, okay. Is that
So,
the town
yeah,
behind it?
the town in the yes, yeah, because that's
That's
very close to the in the is the village where I lived, and there was a forest was nearby, and this lake, which was most of the time frozen, and you could see the city in the distance and the city lights.
wow.
And you know, when it's very cold, and you have this night, so the light is quite amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really quite stunning. And you have them kind of littered throughout your project, and so it's it's interesting. It does bring it. It kind of feels remote. It feels like you're separated and lonely. I think you did a nice job with your selection to kind of portray that feeling that you intended. So that's a great one. You had another project you also wanted to show us too.
Yeah, I would like to show this project on Heaven's Doorsill. This is a very recent project and a totally different topic. Yeah.
I love that image. I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this one. I know I read a little bit about it as I was going through your work, but I want to hear from you. Talk to me about this project. Where did it come from, and
You know,
what inspired you to do it?
this is delving into mythology, folk tales, and beliefs in around the afterlife in Romania. Um, and I just finished it. Yeah, I was working on it for a few years. And I took these images. You know, this many of the images are also inspired by upbringing in the countryside, which we discussed about, and all this because you have all these rituals and customs, um, which are so essential for the life of the community. Um,
You
and
you started shooting black and white. Is it what made you switch?
It was the first time. So
Yeah, you
I
just kept it.
yeah. So I didn't start in black and white. I started working in color. But then I switched to black and white because I thought it works better to have this timeless feel when because we are speaking about tradition, and we are speaking about myths and superstitions, and things which are not so well known, and beliefs in things which are at the border between reality and imagination. Um, and I traveled to many remote places in rural Romania to make this work, which was quite interesting. I really enjoyed making this project. I was looking for places where the customs and the myths are very much alive, um, and also for people, for authentic people who are also, believers, or some of them having a very life which was quite remote from the rest of the civilization, and they're living close to monasteries or um, places which are considered to be sacred. Um, yeah, shepherd.
Talk to me about that. I am so curious
Um,
about.
I was quite fascinated, with this. But this image, for example, and the thing is, in many cases, reality is stranger than fiction. Because this is something that I came across in a old woman's barn. This image that I took here.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's just the way it was. She had the walls painted with this huge white crosses,
Yeah.
which are usually meant to um, for the bad spirits, to scare away the bad spirits, yeah, the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah. um so there is the belief that there is a belief in devil. There is a belief that devil is there, potentially. um
Is there a myth or a kind of tradition that's like just authentically Romanian that you haven't found anywhere else? Are you? Yeah, tell me about it. I'm curious about this. I'm a big fan of this kind of stuff. I am myth and tradition. I read about it a lot. It was like before I even got into art, I was really into symbolism and mythology and all that other stuff. And so I'm curious about one from Romania. Uh,
yeah, there are.
can
I
you
mean,
share?
the Romanian folklore is so rich, and one of the myths that inspired me to make the work was is the myth of the ewe lamb. It's called, in Romanian it's Miorița. Um, it's called like the little lamb, and it's the story revolves around a shepherd. The shepherd is a central character in Romanian mythology. Is a person who is very connected with nature, because he lives a very simple life, and he lives in harmony with nature and with animals, and he can even communicate with them in ways that other people cannot do. And the story of the Yule lamp um, goes like following. There is this young shepherd who is and the enchanted Yule lamp, who tells him that he is going to die very soon. He is going to be killed by two of his mates. And so he's faced um, with this prospect of his death. and he decides. I mean, his last wishes are to be buried by in his favorite place in the middle of the nature, and close to his beloved sheep and beloved dogs. And the way he sees this his passing is he sees it as an integration into the cycle of nature. um, I mean, not in a necessarily in a negative way. He's becoming part of something bigger. He sees it like a cosmic wedding, and yeah, I found that to be very beautiful, and without aiming to illustrate, this ballad in my pictures. Certainly, it inspired many of the images.
Wow. So he finds out that his friends are going to kill him, and he just accepts it.
He just accepts it.
He doesn't try to stop it. He doesn't. He goes, I guess it's my time.
Yes, it's something like that.
That is straight.
Yeah, he has this attitude of acceptance.
Wow.
Death. So he's very much at ease with this thought. And it looks like he's not going to do anything to prevent it, because he sees this as part of the natural cycle and an integration into cosmos, into the larger things. And yeah, that was quite beautiful. And it was also, part when I was working on this project for a few years, and then when I was, and then it was my grandmother who really, the moment, yeah, the discussions I had with her, and I think her influence, was very important for making this work. I mean, this grandmother who raised me in the countryside, which I mentioned in the beginning. And we know all these rituals around death and commemorating the dead were very was central in the community where I was raised, in the village. And my grandmother was she was a very religious person, of course. She was also very, kind and nice woman. But for her, it was important that she observes all these customs and rituals of the community. It was essential. So when she was in her 40s, she started to make preparations for her burial. And she had this cupboard in her house full of which had shelves, and on the shelves there were lots of towels and items of clothing and other stuff that they were meant to be given away at her funeral, and everything was very precisely labeled with the names of the people whom they are going to be given to. I mean, all the grandparents, the grandkids, or the great grandchildren were there. When another great grandchild was born, she would add another item. So just making sure she doesn't forget anyone. So every time I visited her in Romania, she would like to show me her stuff she had for her burial, and we would go through the things and rearrange them. So it was like a ritual for us. And for speaking about their dying, it's not for many people it's a very disturbing subject, but for her it was something comforting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like something that was inevitable, you know. So you might as well,
You might as
prepare.
right.
Yeah.
And it felt
But
like
to start when you're 40, like 40,
exactly she started
I still feel like I'm 20 40s. You know what I mean? So,
she lived a long life, Patrick. So she,
yeah.
until she was 95.
Oh, well,
So it seemed like most of her life was a
that's what she did. Yeah.
preparation for her death, you know? It's
Wow.
amazing. And she was so acceptant and about this, and she would like to it was a constant preoccupation for her. And this image is inspired by her because she had a whole collection of these scarves um, that she used to wear, the traditional scarves, which Romanian women of a certain generation were in the countryside. If you are married and if you are a widow, you have to also, there are certain rules about covering your head. Um, and there was a story which really marked me. And I think that was a moment when, somehow all the pieces of the puzzle of the project, came together was um, in 2023. So yeah, I think she passed away in 2023. In summer 2023, she had a dream, and she shared with us, with my mother, this dream in which my late grandfather would appear, and apparently my grandmother asked him. Why are you here? Did you come to take me like to the other side? And grandfather said, no, it's not yet. It's not time yet. I will come back for you when it's harvest time. And then when it was autumn, a few months later, when it was time to reap the corn, she passed away. Um, I found it quite amazing, how he, some kind of the dream she had. And I think really, the project was, I was already working on this project for a while, but that one was a time when learning about this um, and this idea about this belief in the other side and in reuniting with the dear ones in heaven. That was the moment when um, everything fell into place for me, and I understood that how I want to make the work and how I want to build my project.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's this now not hearing so much of your story, and this all makes like, of course, the written piece helps, but it all kind of connects very, very well. It's quite cool. And what a beautiful story. Like, it's makes you believe that there's something bigger.
yes,
And is that a very important part of who you are? That
definitely.
belief in something.
It's I think it was an you don't understand why you are doing something or why you are making a particular body of work until later, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in my case, I think I was very drawn to this topic, having these conversations with my grandmother um for years, and then diving into mythology and traveling to these places. And of course, now looking back, I understand that it was also part of my own spiritual. I mean, me reconnecting with my cultural and spiritual heritage, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and trying to understand something about my own faith and how I can relate to these beliefs in heaven, in afterlife. And it's quite beautiful, and for example, this particular image is inspired because by funeral dance, which is quite it's unique in Europe, because understood that funeral dances are more typical to Africa, where which are practiced in Romania, in the central parts of Romania, and also in Moldova, in Bukovina, in the north. And so the tradition was that when someone was dying, a member of the community, um, some people from the community, usually there were men, about 10 or 12 men, would dress up and wear specific masks. They were called the Kiparushu's mask. So they were made out of wood and sheepskin. And they were tied among themselves with a chain, which symbolized the chain of life. And they danced around the fire in the at sunset. And they sometimes they would jump over the fire, or they were. It also had a playful side. I mean, they pushed each other, and I think this is a pagan tradition. It dates back to. It's not a Christian Orthodox it's not Christian Orthodox by any means. It's a pagan tradition, and it relates to the cult of the ancestors, and it's meant to ease the passage of the deceased and purify their soul with this fire which is part of their of the ritual. And it's also they chant some words about the human condition, about the tree of life, and about life, which is transitory. Things like this. Yeah, it's something that I didn't know before, because unfortunately it's getting a bit lost. It's being they're disappearing. This traditions now I didn't know about it. I came across it when I was making this piece of work, and I thought it was beautiful. Yeah. It was a very interesting philosophy of
it's
breath.
it's this relation to death. I think we all at some point in time are confronted with it, and to kind of see how our ancestors and some of the the traditions have kind of dealt with that question of our final days is quite interesting. And the ceremonies, I think these it's a very common ceremony. Believe it or not, whether you were connected regionally or not, you had this kind of dance around death and the send off, this party or whatever. I think it's cool. I love this image being added in here. It's a very mystical. They look like they're having fun.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's also a bit of it's a something. It's also a playful side to it, and
Yeah.
nice to know. It's
It's
being able to to joke around a little bit, and to transmit this idea that it's all part of the cycle of life. That is also part of life. Yeah.
I love the evolution. I love how you're kind of going in a different direction and checking, going in just kind of taking that next step out, from the subject matter. And did you want to talk about that other project as well, or do you?
I think this one is definitely on my mind, because it's quite fresh as well. Now I'm in the process of making a book.
Oh wow!
which yeah, I'm hoping to finish and launch this summer in Arles. I hope if everything goes well. My to get with my publisher. So yeah, it's quite exciting, and this thing for sure is going to be in the book. Yeah, I mean this one. Yeah,
Is that a sheep?
uh,
What, sheep eye? Like,
that's a sheep eye.
is that what it was?
Yes, that's a sheep eye.
Okay.
This is the eye of a sheep. Yes. Um,
It's awesome. I think it's really you've done a really nice job of kind of like developing your visual language, and it's kind of evolved in a lot of ways. And uh, how does it feel to kind of be in this place?
I think it's also yeah, as it's evolving, as you said, Patrick. Is it's ever changing. You know, I mean, some people talk about finding their voice or finding their yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about that because I think I like to experiment and. For me, it all comes first with the idea and the project, and it would feel very unnatural to create only according to a certain style or aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is how it feels natural for me to start with the project with the idea, and then I find the visual language which expresses what I want to say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How
So
do
that
how does your family except how do your kids and your husband what do they think about all of it?
about this project.
No, just in general, like your practice and
Um, well, it's it was a journey, you know,
yeah, of course.
for the whole family, not only for me. And this project on Heaven's Doorsill, I think provides respite from the political work that I'm more political projects that I'm making.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we talked about this quite a lot, and I talk about with my kids about lots of subjects, and it's very important to I think to I realized, you know, that I cannot um, not I cannot ignore politics, and because I was talking with my kids about I'll Be Late Tonight and about this project, and they saw my book and. They heard some of my talks on the topic, and they are also quite opinionated about it. And we have interesting conversations, you know. And I think it's important conversations. You have to. We cannot shelter the children and pretend that they we have to preserve their innocence. And it's important for them to think for themselves and to guide them also in this
Yeah.
right, because if you don't as a
True.
parent, the algorithm is going to do it. So
You're exactly right. I was gonna say that. It's like it's you have a world out there that's all competing for your mind, you know? And so if you can engage your kids young, they learn how to think for themselves, you know?
exactly.
And so I think that's like really interesting. And the other thing is that you wouldn't believe how much kids understand it too, you know?
Definitely they have
Yeah.
access to much more information than we used to have, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they are forced to mature um, faster than we did, right?
Yeah.
um, and they have to make sense of all this ocean of
Yeah.
which is out there. And
Yeah.
you know, I think I realized that I have to talk about them, to talk to them about things. I mean, as a parent, you transmit to them a set of values, right? And your values are based on your beliefs. And now we talk about democracy, and we talk about caring for other people, and even if they are different, and things like free speech. I think I'm really enjoying this conversation with them about Andrew Tate. If you want,
Oh yeah, yeah. He's been a topic out there, hasn't he?
he is in a
Yeah.
topic. I found out about him first time from our children. So,
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
so this is why, yeah, we have to have these conversations.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I didn't know I had to talk about Andrew Tate. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yes.
he's been all over the place lately. I didn't hear about him until I was talking to a young guy, and he was talking to me about these ideas, and I was like, why? Why do you sound so firm? What happened to you? And so it's definitely stoking some interesting that I think I don't know if it was a Chinese proverb or what it might have been, but they said, may you not live in interesting times. And it's a curse to live in interesting times.
Yes.
And I think that we live in interesting times. And so I'm like, oh no, did I miss the exit? Did I come in the wrong time? Like but it's quite interesting to kind of think about. And I love how you're engaging your kids. I think that's really, really quite cool. And to kind of see how you're kind of evolving and your work is getting out there. And I see new posts from you. I think you started following us pretty soon. And so I started following you right away, and I've been watching you evolve. And so it's really exciting. So what do you have coming up next? You said you had a show coming up soon?
Yeah. So I have this book on Heaven's Doorsill. Hopefully, yeah, in summer, and a show next week, very soon, in London, with a collective called Rethinking Eastern Europe. It's also very exciting because I'm showing a different piece of work, and how do I go back to the main menu? Let me check. Yeah, this one, which is God created woman. So this is focusing on relationship between gender, power, and the control, exploring the treatment of women bodies within religious, familial, and societal structures. And the title refers to this the biblical creation narrative where the woman is born from the rib of the man, but yet she's born second. But on the other hand, it's the woman who gives life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
it's also I'm delving into my Christian Orthodox upbringing as a woman. So this project is exploration of the beliefs I grew up with about the role of women and about the control that you arguably can say the woman's body is not her own. It's the state's, it's husbands, religious institutions. Everyone has wants to impose rules on and control the woman's body. So this project addresses these questions, and it references some scenes from the religious iconography and challenges this power dynamic where the woman is subordinate and the man is always in the position of authority. Yeah, that was made. Also in I made it also in Romania.
Who are the subjects? Who are the? Go ahead.
Like many of my projects are have been done in Romania. Yeah, traveling back and forth, Switzerland and Romania.
Who are you taking photos of? Who is that? Who are the two people?
The two people.
Does it matter, or should we not know?
Um. Yeah, maybe
Is it?
he would be more comfortable not to.
Yeah. Well, what do they symbolize? I guess. What do you?
Because it's also not easy to find people who would be comfortable to reenact the scenes in Romania, because society is, I mean, people are very religious, and religion plays has an important part in society, and yeah, so you have to be quite open and um, to be willing to participate in such a project. Yeah, especially, yeah, people are thinking about what would their neighbors think, or what would so I'm very grateful to the people involved for their help, for their generosity. Yeah, we have to also to believe in art a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Well,
understand that this is I mean, also it does not it is not necessarily you who is there, right? It's a projection of an idea of the yeah of the image maker.
it's interesting. It's I see you kind of jumping a little bit. It's like you've evolved from, kind of your initial thought about why am I, what am I doing here? Why am I being like looked at as second class citizen as a housewife, and now you're kind of going in and breaking it apart through religious context. It's quite you're kind of evolving in the idea, which is interesting. So through this, did you discover anything? Anything come to you that you didn't think about before?
um yeah, I mean,
That's a tough question.
yeah, definitely, but it's when you're making something, you don't necessarily know in the beginning why you are doing it.
Yeah.
And it takes a while for the ideas to form in your head. And um, I know what inspired me, and it was part of my upbringing. And but it's also the everyday life and the stories I hear from other people. Um, and then what I learned, I think I learned, I now I can see this. I gain a certain distance towards these things. Yeah,
Yeah.
as a person. Yeah, so I'm not. I could take enough distance so I can make this project, because it takes. I felt in the beginning like it was breaking a taboo a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, especially for the kind of community I was raised in. Yeah, but that's also, maybe it helps the fact that I don't live in Romania anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow I'm an insider and then outsider at the same time. So
Yeah.
I can step back and reflect about these things, and how they impacted me and my upbringing, and yeah, how they shaped me as an artist.
Wow.
I have, and I feel very privileged, to have this freedom.
It's really quite interesting to kind of see your evolution for sure. Um, I like how you're kind of unpacking ideas with the camera, and you can kind of see your evolution through those three projects. I think it's pretty amazing. I don't know that we have time to look at anything else, but
Okay.
but if you want, yeah, you can jump into some
No,
recipes.
it's
Huh?
okay.
Okay.
This,
Well, it's like I really like seeing that. I That's my big goal for this. I love seeing the evolution of someone's ideas, their thoughts, their visual language, how it's gotten there. You're in a really cool place, I think. You have reached a place that a lot of us are really kind of trying to be in, where we just get to unpack concepts, ideas. We get to ask questions of the world. I love. There's a quote by David Campany that I posted recently, and they're just propositions. An image is just a proposition. It's just it's really fascinating to kind of see you playing with that, and asking us to consider these things. Um, but uh, I think I only have one final question for you, and but I'm kind of curious. You said you have a show on that. You have that book coming out. And is what else do you got going on? Are those the two big pressing things right now? How long is that still going on?
the book,
The show.
the show. Yeah, it's
No, going out next week.
next week. Yeah, it's very soon, and I still haven't. I'm still have to figure out how I get the works to London.
Oh yeah. Well, how long is it going to be up?
For 1 week.
Okay, for 1 week.
Yeah.
Okay. This show might come out after that. So share good photos so people can follow you on Instagram and we can check it out. Yeah.
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 Patrick, thank you so much for your comments, and also I feel like I'm not deserving them. This part of me figuring it out, because it's totally untrue. I feel like I'm. You can you never figure it out. I mean, if you do, that means that it's the end of the journey.
No, 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 no. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's
It's like I feel like I'm like my practice is still quite open, and I'm very curious about still, about photography. I'm still very curious about photography, and I'm curious about other medium as well, and very open to try new things, to experiment, and yeah, I really enjoy this journey. It's a journey. It's not, yeah.
Yeah, no, as far as I don't want to discourage you saying, okay, you've reached the top of the mountain, there's no other mountains to climb. I think what's interesting is that, like, especially when you become I've been writing a lot, and I feel like I'm finally in this place to where I can actually explain my ideas in a way that I can truly express myself purely, right? And I do that with photography, as well. But with writing, I feel like I'm on this other place. And so what happens when you get to that kind of place is that now you have this ability to express yourself. And so now you have the next step up is asking really cool questions. You know what I mean? It's like, well, what do you want to think about? And how do you want to express that? And so now you're on this journey of just expression and playing. It's like when somebody masters the piano, then they start to write and then they make their own music. You know what I mean? And then they start doing all these other things where before they were playing somebody else's music, mastered that. Now they're creating their own and they're on this journey of just discovery and understanding. And that's what I think, a lot of times when you get to that level, it's just this now you're experiencing what this new medium can reveal to you. I think it's going to reveal, you ask the question, you photograph it, and then it reveals something to you in the process. And I always ask that question, what'd you learn? What'd you figure out in this process? You know what I mean? I'm always curious about that, all of that, because I know in the process of making something and in getting to that place, uh, photography and this whole practice of art making teaches you along the way, as long as you're listening. And so, like, I think it's really quite interesting. And I don't think you're going to be done by no means. I think you have a lot more in you. So keep it up. I really enjoy following you. So on Instagram. So I love your feed. It's great. But I just have one final question for you, and then we can wrap it up. And it's the question I ask everyone. And this question is really just kind of related to giving advice to our artists or photographers out there that might want to become a photographer themselves. Or you could just take the second question. So that's the first one, advice for photographers. And then the second piece, if you want to answer this instead, is what kind of advice, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh, well, yeah, the advice is only good for one thing, for not ignoring it, And I wouldn't take advice either, so I don't like to give advice. Yeah.
That's why I give that second one. What would you tell your younger self?
But I think I can maybe I can give advice and to my kids,
Yeah, there you go.
even if kids or not,
Yeah.
But that's my job as a parent, and yeah, maybe I can share some of this, some of the things I learned during my journey as a parent. Yeah. So one thing that I learned was that the value that we don't teach our children, and we don't value kindness and empathy as much as we should. Because given my upbringing, which I detailed quite a lot, in communist Romania, and me trying to find my way, in this troubled landscape, I thought that when giving advice to my children, the priority would be to teach them to try to be assertive and to try their best in whatever they do. But then, when with this changing political landscape and so many with this crazy world we live in, I understood that we have to emphasize how important is for them to be kind, to listen to each other, and to value the differences they have with people who are not like them, from a space of compassion and mutual understanding. And and I think it's important to teach them to stand up for themselves and to be able to stand up for the things they believe in, but to do it with diplomacy and with respect of others.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
Kindness, respect, taking care of each other. It's all seems like we need to hear that these days. So I'm glad this is the episode where we get to talk about that. So I think that's awesome. I really like that idea of listening to other people in their perspectives, and just having an open ear and an open heart. I think that's really, really important. So we're at the end. So yeah. How do we connect with you? This is where you can share how people can find your work, buy your work, find your website. Tell us how we can connect with you online. Tell us where you are on Instagram. All of that.
Yeah, they definitely. I am on Instagram, as you mentioned. Roxana Savin. But actually, my work is on my website, which I invite you to visit. It's roxanasavin.com. So it's simple. And My book is up for sale there for whoever is interested, and there will be details about my upcoming book as well, and my contact details, are up on the website, my email. So drop me a line if you want to get in touch.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was really nice having you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really cool. I'm glad I finally got to connect with you and actually talk about your work. It was definitely worth it. So thank you so much again.
Thanks, Patrick.
And to all those that have made it this far, thank you for joining us on the Urbanaut Podcast. If you like content like this, please like, share, and comment down below. All of that helps us. All of that supports us. You wouldn't believe how far a like goes in the algorithmic world that we live in. So drop us a like, give us a comment. All of that helps support this show. If you want to go a little deeper with that support, you can also join our Patreon by being a paid subscriber, as well as on YouTube. We just got YouTube where you can become a paid subscriber, and Spotify, I'm pretty sure you can as well. But if you want to support us there, please join us on those sites and support us on Patreon and YouTube and all the places. And as always, we'll see you next time.